Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I am back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the last 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, are partial reps useful, or are they just used for ego lifting in disguise? Um, Good question. So partial reps have their place, okay? But that place should be at the very end of a set. And that should be the last set of the exercise. All right. So for example, if I'm doing, I don't know, let's say dumbbell bench press, incline dumbbell bench press, and I'm on my last set, I'm on set number 4, and I'm looking for 10 reps, and I've got 70-pound dumbbells. Now, I know I can get 10 reps, but I also know that if I maybe want to push it to true failure, I can probably get 2, maybe 3 more partial reps, which means I'm not going to go all the way up in connected dumbbells, but I might just get a little bit up on the concentric contractions. So I'm going partial reps about 3/4 of the way up, sometimes half the way up. Okay, so it's not a full repetition. So they do have their place. Where I see problems with partial reps is that people do them too often and too soon into an exercise. So I'll see people doing partial reps from the very beginning when they're doing a bench press. They will start with, I don't know, 45 pounds per side, and they'll lift the bar and then they'll go down, but they only go about maybe halfway down and then go back up again. Now, when you're doing that, you're only getting half the movement. So you're not really stimulating pec major or pec minor in the press. You're not focused on your eccentric contraction and your concentric contraction in the press in this particular exercise. So I see problems with people doing partial repetitions when it comes to certain movements. Another thing that can be somewhat dangerous with partial reps is they put a lot of strain on your joints, ligaments, and tendons. Okay. Remember, the goal is to stimulate, not annihilate the muscle bellies. Not my quote, Great Lee Haney, 8-time Mr. Olympia. That's his quote. But it's true. You don't want to annihilate the muscles and you don't want to annihilate your joints, tendons, and ligaments. So you have to be very careful and you have to be very strategic as to when to implement partial repetitions. My recommendation to my clients is if we're going for, let's say, a new weight, so we're trying to go for a new PR, we're going to try to get those first 10 to 12 repetitions perfect, okay, on that last set. And then maybe those last 2 or 3, they're not going to be perfect. They're going to be partial. They're not going to be using full range of motion, but that's going to help stimulate new muscle growth and it's going to allow them to surpass a plateau. Okay, so there is a place for partial reps, but as I said, that place, in my opinion, should be on the last set of an exercise and on those last 2 or 3 repetitions only. I wouldn't do it on every exercise. Okay. And again, I would make sure that if you are going to do partial reps, ideally you want to do them with a spotter because it can be dangerous, especially if you're doing, let's say, partial reps on a barbell bench press. You don't want to get stuck under that bar and nobody's there to take it off you, right? So my recommendation, if you're going to incorporate partial reps, put them in at the end of an exercise. So set number 4, set number 5, depending on how many sets you do for an exercise, and on your last, 2 or 3 repetitions only, ideally with the spotter in mind. All right. Okay, next question. Nick, I heard you talk about how important the mind to muscle connection is, but how can I increase my mind to muscle connection during my sets? So there's a few ways you can do this. What I found always worked for me was doing static contractions. So if I'm doing, let's say, a seated cable V-bar row, I'm going to retract my rhomboids, my scapula, keep my shoulders depressed. What I'll do is on the concentric contraction, I'll give a 1-2 pause so I can really squeeze those muscle fibers. And then I'll slowly release on the eccentric contraction. That will allow my mind to muscle connection to become more efficient over time. As you train, the longer you train, that mind to muscle connection becomes stronger because you're becoming more used to the planes and ranges of motion. So you don't have to incorporate static contractions on every single set, on every single rep. No. But if you're a beginner and you're trying to really feel that muscle contract, you might want to incorporate static contractions. Another thing I recommend everyone do, especially for people who don't have a trainer, is educate yourself on anatomy and physiology. If you're doing that same seated row, I talked about this last week. If you're doing that same seated row and you think, well, I'm working my back, start rowing. I see people doing this all the time, working my back. Well, you're actually not working your back because now you're not doing the movement correctly. You're using momentum. You're probably using more biceps than actual lats. And you risk actually injuring yourself. So you're not really recruiting muscle fibers to the lats, or in the case of a seated row, the thickness of the back. Okay, so it's really important to have an understanding of anatomy and physiology so you know which planes and ranges of motion to utilize and understand that in the case of, let's say, the seated row, your biceps are your synergist muscles. So yeah, they're going to assist in the pull, but a good way to take them out of the equation, use lifting straps or use grabbers. Okay, I'm just using this as an example in this particular exercise, but there's so many exercises I see people not engaging the proper muscles because they don't understand which muscles they're working. There's so many times I'll see people doing a barbell back squat and think, well, I'm working my legs. Yeah, but your legs are a big muscle group. So to say I'm working my legs, that could be anything. Are you working your quads? Are you working your hamstrings? Are you working your glutes? Are you working your calves? So in order to stimulate and not annihilate the joints, and also make sure that you're targeting the correct muscle groups in the case of a squat, it's a good idea to have an understanding of, okay, a barbell back squat, I'm going to use my quadriceps, but I'm also going to be using my gluteus maximus to push up in addition to my hamstring. So it's a 3-in-1 if done correctly. If done incorrectly, well, now you're asking for knee problems, hip problems, and people usually use their quads more because quads are more dominant than the hamstrings and glutes. A lot of people have a hard time engaging those back muscles that they can't see. Okay, so if you're having a hard time establishing that mind to muscle connection, my recommendation is throw in static contractions. And those static contractions can just be held for a quick 1, 2. I'm not saying hold them for 5, 10 seconds. I'm just saying squeeze that 1, 2, release. Okay, take a weight that's challenging, but also a weight that you can still hold and control. That's what I always do with every new client that I work with who's having a really hard time feeling a muscle group. Very rarely do I get someone that has difficulty, let's say in a bicep curl, feeling their biceps. That's pretty simple. They do a bicep curl. Where do you feel it? My bicep. Yeah, that's about right, right? Because it's an easy muscle to feel. But then when you start using the back muscles, like the scapula, the trapezius, the rhomboids, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves, they become a little bit more challenging to create that mind to muscle connection with. So that's where static contractions come into play. And that's where having an understanding of anatomy and physiology will benefit you immensely when you're in the gym. Okay. Okay. Nick, how many reps should I really be doing for hypertrophy in 2025? You should be doing the same amount of reps for hypertrophy in 2025 that people were doing in 1985, 1975, 1965. Nothing's changed. Okay. We need to stop trying to reinvent the wheel. Okay. All these fancy gimmicks that people are doing, all these technical exercises, all these handstands I see on TikTok and all this nonsense, this is cookie cutter bullshit. Okay. This is all stuff used for clickbait, shock value, right? So it's not something that's going to actually build solid, lean, dense muscle. We know what builds solid, lean, dense muscle. Okay. Double digit repetitions, 10 to 15 reps, occasionally going as high as 20 if you want to do a burnout. Okay. Occasionally dropping down to maybe 8 reps if you're doing a drop set at the end and you're trying to hit a new PR. But for the majority of your sets, if you're trying to build a physique, sculpt your physique, you want to keep your reps in double digits. And that's why I recommend people stay within that 10 to 15 rep range. Okay. And as I said, there are times where maybe I'll drop my last set down to 8 reps if I'm doing a drop set or I'm trying to get a new weight, but that's like maybe 5% of my workout. Okay. And there are times where I might do 20 reps. And usually when I'm doing 20 reps or something, it's because I'm trying to warm up the muscle properly. Maybe I'm coming in, my shoulder's feeling a little tight. So I'm starting with some barbell military presses. And I know I need to release a little bit more synovial fluid in there, get the joints flowing well. So yeah, I might do 20 reps just to really get everything more lubricated and feeling good. But majority of my workout, as in like 90% of my workout, I'm keeping those reps between 10 to 15 because my goal has always been for hypertrophy. Most people, if not everyone I work with, goal is for health, fitness, and hypertrophy. They want to build an aesthetically pleasing physique. And as I said before, there's nothing wrong with that. But in order to do that, you have to stay away from the 1 to 3 reps, that nonsense. That's powerlifting, okay? If you really want to say, I need to get leaner. I want to build, if you're a guy, I want to build a bigger chest. If you're a woman, I want to build a better butt. You got to keep those reps in double digits. Okay. We got to stop reinventing the wheel and looking for the latest TikTok fad or all this nonsense because we know what works. It's worked for decades. It worked for Arnold's generation and it's working for today's generation. So don't try to reinvent the wheel and just try to look for something that's going to, create clickbait or shock value. It looks cool on Instagram, looks cool on TikTok Reels, but at the end of the day, it's not building muscle. Okay. If you want to build and sculpt your physique, stay within double digits, keep rest periods minimal, 45 seconds to a minute max in between sets, and make sure that you're using full range of motion. And as I said in the first question, don't be afraid to incorporate partial reps. But again, last set of that exercise, maybe last 2 or 3 reps only. Okay. So not every set and not every exercise. Okay. Okay. Nick, can I grow my legs effectively without doing barbell squats? You can, but most people can't. Okay. I'm reminded when I hear this question, I'm reminded of Dorian Yates, 6-time Mr. Olympia. Now, he said that he built his legs without doing any barbell back squats in his later career. But in the early part of his career, he actually did do barbell back squats. So I believe that he built the foundation of his legs from doing barbell back squats. As he became more advanced in his training, as in 8 to 10 years, he took them out and replaced them with Smith machine squats. Dorian Yates was a genetic freak. Okay. There's not that many genetic freaks out there. Okay. Trust me, I've been doing this job for over 22 years now. Very rarely do I come across genetic freaks. For myself, even, I've always been pretty gifted in the lower body, more gifted in my lower body than my upper body. But to this day, I still do barbell back squats because I attribute my leg development and not just my quadriceps, but my hamstrings and my glutes and my calves to barbell back squats. It's the only exercise, and I mean the only exercise for the lower body where you're getting under that bar, you're stabilizing the entire set from the eccentric phase to the concentric phase. Barbell back squats, in my opinion, are the most difficult and challenging exercise you will ever do. They're the most difficult and challenging exercise that I will ever teach. There's a lot of complexity behind this movement. Okay. So to understand how to do it correctly, you want to make sure that you're engaging the proper muscle groups. In my experience, people who don't do barbell back squats don't have the best legs. As I said, there's some genetic freaks out there. They can get away with it. But listen, there's genetic freaks out there that don't even go to the gym and they have a six pack. But again, when you look at the entire population, what percentage of the population is like that? I'd say probably about 2%. There's a good chance if you're watching this, you're not in that 2%. So if you want my advice, that's what you're asking for, do barbell back squats. And don't just do barbell back squats for your lower body. You have to remember, when you're doing heavy compound exercises that require you to stabilize the weight throughout the entire movement, you're releasing testosterone, more testosterone throughout your body. And this goes for women as well. And this is a good thing, not a bad thing, okay? Because the more testosterone you have, man or woman, you're going to build more muscle, okay? Naturally. So in my opinion, it's a mistake to leave out barbell back squats. And if you are someone who feels you can't do barbell back squats, whether you have a back issue, a hip issue, a knee issue, my recommendation to you is to work with an experienced, knowledgeable personal trainer that can help coach you and get you to that point where you can do it. Because there's numerous people that I've worked with over the years who, from day one, they don't come in the gym and start doing barbell back squats. I mean, some do, but most people who I start working with, if they've never really been to the gym or they've taken the last 5, 10 years off from training, I don't get them doing barbell back squats until maybe a month, maybe 2 months in. I get them doing different exercises for the legs. I get them doing walking lunges. I get them doing ball wall squats. I get them doing step ups, BOSU squats, just so I can loosen up their hip flexors, open up their hip abductors, and get them to really engage their glutes and hamstrings so that they can actually contract their quadriceps properly without using the patella or the meniscus, okay, their knees. So you want to make sure that you're training correctly. At the same time, that is an exercise that I would keep in on a weekly basis. That's my opinion on barbell back squats. Okay. Nick, are two-a-day workouts sustainable for muscle growth, or is this a fast track to burnout? So the two-a-day workouts were really popular back in the 70s. That's what, again, Arnold's generation did. But you have to remember, they didn't know as much as we know today about dietary nutrition, supplementation, and training. Okay. A lot has evolved since the 70s. A lot has stayed the same. Like I said, the reps and the sets should stay the same. But as far as volume training is concerned, that has changed because people have now actually started to study weightlifting and see, okay, well, what are the benefits behind weightlifting besides just building a pretty physique? Well, we know it can help prevent osteoarthritis, tendonitis, lower cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, right? We know that it can help fight off obesity, right? So we understand that there's numerous benefits that go beyond aesthetics for weightlifting. At the same time, though, we have to keep in mind that like anything, any sport, it evolves over time. So there are some changes that I agree with, and one would be to get rid of the 2 a day splits, okay? Because in my opinion, that is overtraining, not just physically, but more mentally. You're going to the gym twice a day. I was victim of this myself back in like when my teenage years. I would try doing that split, and I just burnt out mentally, not physically, but mentally, because I was like, I'm always in the gym, and I didn't really see much progress. So I feel like that type of split might work for someone who's running an anabolic steroid cycle, but for someone who's a natural lifter, you're not giving your body enough time to rest, recover. Okay, because you have to remember, your body doesn't grow in the gym. It grows outside the gym. So you go to the gym, you tear everything down in your body. You tear down your muscles, you push yourself to failure. You're exhausted, you're sweaty, you're sore, you leave. That's not when you're building. You're building the muscle, you're burning the fat after the workout. When you go home, when you're replenishing, when you're hydrating, when you're getting in your proper nutrients, okay? Whether that's through food supplementation or, like I said, water, BCAAs, whatever you may drink, that helps replenish the body, okay? Sleep is also important. So it's not that I wouldn't recommend 2 a day workouts to someone who's necessarily a professional bodybuilder and who's doing, let's say, a fairly big anabolic steroid cycle, because there are professional bodybuilders that do that. And it does work really well for them. But most people are not professional bodybuilders. And most people have 9 to 5 jobs, or they're working 5 days a week, and they don't have time to be in the gym twice a day. So I wouldn't recommend it. Now, I don't have anything wrong with, say, someone wanting to do, let's say, a weight training session in the morning and maybe doing a jiu-jitsu class at night, or maybe they're going for a run in the morning and then they're going to do a weight training session at night. I think that's fine because you're working your cardiovascular system, you're working your respiratory system, you're working your muscular system. So you're working different areas. Okay. So I think that's okay. But I wouldn't go to the gym doing 2 weightlifting sessions. Okay. I think that's overkill. Just like I wouldn't do 2 cardio sessions. Like I wouldn't do a run in the morning and go for a long swim at night. Like I feel like that's too much. Okay. So again, it depends on the individual, obviously. In my experience, I've done it before. I didn't really notice much benefits. So if you've got the time to do it, you can try it yourself and see. But I just found that it mentally just burned me out. I didn't even want to be in the gym. So I found one workout a day was enough for me. And now, as I get older, my workouts are even shorter. I've talked about how my own workouts are no longer than 45, 50 minutes max. And I've noticed I've gotten better benefits from that than when I was doing 90-minute workouts. Okay. So again, it's not about the duration in the gym, it's what you're doing in the gym that matters. Okay. Okay. I think I lost my place. Where am I here? Okay. Nick, what's the difference between training to failure versus training past failure? Well, I think training to failure, in my opinion, so let's say you're training on your own, you don't have a spotter, okay? Training to failure, and this is truly what I believe, is that I'm doing that same, let's talk about that incline dumbbell bench press where I'm going for my 10 reps. And those last 2 reps, if I get 12, are going to be partial reps. That to me is training to failure because I still had those 2 partial reps in reserve. If someone said to me, hey, I'll give you $1 million if you get those 2 reps, I'm going to push as hard as I freaking can. That to me is going to true failure. Okay. So if I stop at 10, if you're like, I probably could have done 1 or 2 more, but A, I'm not doing that because I've got a hell of a lot more exercises to do. B, I don't want to risk injury. I don't want to put stress on my tendons, ligaments, and joints. And C, I want to stimulate and not annihilate the muscles, right? So I keep that in mind, right? But to me, when someone says train to failure, that's what I hear. Now, when someone says training past failure, the only time I recommend doing that is if you have a spotter. So let's say you're doing a barbell bench press and you're going for 10 reps. And now you've knocked out those 10 reps, but you probably could get 2, maybe 3 more with your spotter's help. So you're getting the bar maybe 2/3 of the way up, and the spotter's going to help you for that extra 1/3. Then you go down again, you get it 2/3 of the way up, and that spotter's going to help you for that 1/3. You go down one more time, maybe you only get it halfway up this time, and the spotter's going to help you for the other half. So that's training past failure because there's no way that you yourself would ever be able, never mind a partial rep, you're not going to be able to get any reps if you're doing that on your own. So that's where training past failure can come into play. I'm, me personally, I'm not a big fan of training past failure because, again, I feel that puts a lot of stress on the joints, ligaments, tendons, and the central nervous system. So I just go old school approach where I'm like, you know what, I want to take my body to exhaustion. I want to stimulate the muscle fibers correctly. I'm not all about just trying to see how much weight I can throw around. I'm not an ego lifter. I always go in with that kind of like an artist mindset where I'm there to sculpt the body. I'm not there to impress anybody. Okay. I want to, maybe I want to build more detail in my chest or I want to build bigger arms. So I'm always assessing my physique. I could care less what the weight is. Okay. There's many times when I'm training in the gym where I might lift lighter one workout than the other. Not because I'm necessarily feeling weaker, just because I'm feeling the muscles more with that lighter weight. So I just listen to my body. I let my body dictate the workout as I go. It's the same with my sequence. I always listen to my body as I go throughout my workout. Just because I started my leg workout one week with barbell back squats doesn't mean I'm going to start my next leg workout with barbell back squats. Maybe my hips are tight, so I'm going to start with some walking lunges. I take the same approach with my clients too. That's why I ask them, how are you feeling today? What's going on? Oh, I got some strain in my lower back, or my glutes are feeling really tight, or I have some soreness in my hip. Oh, okay. Well, why don't we start you with a different exercise just to warm up and see how you do? Oh, perfect. This works. Great. Okay. So it's all about listening to your body. And in my case of working with clients, telling the client, listen to your body and reiterate what your body is telling you and tell it to me so I can program accordingly. Okay. So I'm not a big fan of training past failure. Training to failure, again, does have its place. And again, in my opinion, that place would be with the partial reps, last set of an exercise, those last 2 or 3 repetitions. Not on every exercise. Maybe do make 3 or 4 of your exercises. If you're doing like 8 or 10 exercises in a workout, don't do it on everything. Okay. There's no reason to do that because you're just going to burn out. And again, you're risking injury. You're putting stress on your joints, ligaments, and tendons. In my opinion, not worth it. Okay. Uh, okay, a few more questions here. Nick, do I need to eat protein immediately after my workout, or does timing not matter? So I answered a similar question to this on an Instagram reel this week, talking about protein shakes. Okay, and talking about how protein shakes, in my opinion, are kind of a fad. They're not necessary. They're a gimmick. You can get the same benefits, if not better benefits, from eating whole food sources. And I did talk about the so-called anabolic window, where everyone, not everyone, but the supplement industry will have you believe that as soon as you're done with your workout, you need to consume protein right away within the first 10 minutes, for the first 30 minutes, whatever it may be. But don't let it go longer than 30 minutes, or else your body's going to go into a catabolic state. You're going to lose all this muscle, blah, blah, blah. I've heard this bullshit for years. There is no scientific data backing this. Zero, none. Okay. This is bro science. What I tell clients is this: you're done your workout. You've got about 2, maybe 3 hours where I want you to consume something that is not ridiculously high in protein, but that is moderately high in protein. Now, this will obviously depend on your body weight, your goals, whether you're trying to build muscle, lose fat, combination of the two. But usually for most people, it's between that 20 to 40 grams of protein. Okay. I'll also ask that same person to make sure that they're getting in a complex carbohydrate and a healthy fats. The macronutrients will vary based on the person I'm working with, but I want to make sure that they're having a meal that has all 3 macronutrients in it. So complex carbohydrates, healthy fats, lean proteins. And there's a reason for this because if you just go for lean protein, well, that's good. Yeah, your muscle does need lean protein, but your muscles will take it in better and more efficiently if you complement that with some healthy fats, so it takes longer for the body to digest, and some complex carbohydrates that will help replenish glycogen storages. Okay, so in my opinion, you're much better off having something like 6 ounces of chicken breasts with maybe some steamed rice, some broccoli. It could be a cup of steamed white jasmine rice, whatever, brown rice, some broccoli, and then a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. Because now you've got your lean proteins, you've got your complex carbohydrates from the rice, you've got a fibrous carbohydrate from the broccoli, and you've got your healthy fats from the omega-3 olive oil. Okay. Whereas with a protein shake, you're just really getting the protein because if it's a good protein powder, it's only going to contain protein, really. It'll have maybe 2 grams of carbohydrates and like 0.5, 1 gram of fat. So to me, that's not a good idea. So I would avoid protein shakes. I'd go for the whole food source. And as far as the anabolic window is concerned, it's not as short as people think it is. I think you can get just as good, if not better benefits by continuing with whole food sources and having within a 2, 3 hour window. I wouldn't go longer than 3 hours. I feel like not because your body's going to go into a catabolic state. I just don't think it's a good idea because, after 3 hours of exercise, you should be somewhat hungry, right? Unless you push yourself where you're so sick and nauseous and you're throwing up, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. But I noticed for me, after I work out, I'm pretty hungry within an hour. So I need to eat something or else I start to feel faint. I feel depleted. Okay. So it's a good idea to have something on hand. And that's why I do recommend people prepare their meals ahead of time. For me, I usually have Tupperware at the gym. It's like that chicken, rice, broccoli broccoli, extra virgin olive oil, or maybe I'll do some salmon and I'll do some yams, extra virgin olive oil again. So there's something there that I have post workout. And I usually consume that anywhere within 60 to maybe like 90 minutes for me, and I'm good. Okay. So that's what I think about the anabolic window. I don't think that it has to be right away, but I wouldn't let it go longer than about 3 hours. Okay. Okay. Two more questions. Okay. Uh, Nick, how can I track recovery without wearing a fitness tracker? The same way I've been tracking recovery without a fitness tracker for 30 years. Listen to your body. You don't need these fitness apps and fitness trackers. It's all nonsense. Like you really don't. And I understand that there's convenience, and I understand people like looking up numbers and stats, and they like to write things in their diaries and say, "Well, last week I lifted." Who cares? If you're going into the gym and you're like, my goal, I want to lose fat, I want to build muscle. I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. You don't need to have all this data on hand. You need to pay attention to what you're doing in the gym or have a coach that's paying attention to what you're doing in the gym. So if you're working on your own and you're new to this, you really have to listen to your body and understand and say, okay, am I sore or am I just being a little bitch and I'm tired? Okay. Am I really sore? Like, is it to the point where I can't go to the gym and train? Because I've said this before with people is like, oh, my back is sore. Well, okay, your back is sore, but why can't you train your chest? Why can't you train your biceps? Why can't you train your triceps? Why can't you train your quadriceps? Maybe we should just lay off your back today. So there's other muscles you can train. So my point is that you have to listen to your body again, pay attention, and then program accordingly. Okay. So for a lot of people, like most people that I work with in-house or I design online training programs for, they train anywhere from 3 to 5 days, okay, a week. My competitors usually train 6 days a week in the gym, but again, that's probably about maybe only 20% of my roster. Most people are training 3 to 5 days a week. That's good for most people. If you're brand new to this, though, I always recommend people start off with 2 days a week. And I know there's a lot of people that come into the gym, they're super motivated, like, no, I need to lose this fat, I need to build this muscle. I'm like, no, 2 days a week of weights. And if you want to put cardio in on those other 4 or 5 days, go for it. Okay. You want to do something on the treadmill, elliptical, you go crazy. But I only want you doing 2 days of weights. Okay. Because that's going to allow the muscles to heal properly. And then as you become more advanced in your training within, let's say, a month, maybe 2 months, depending on your age, depending on your training experience, your lifestyle, if you have any physical limitations, any health issues, you can start increasing that frequency. Okay. Increasing the volume. But if you go in gung ho and you're like, I'm going to train 6 days a week, I've never done this before, there's a good chance you're going to get injured. There's a good chance that you're going to be too sore. There's a good chance you're going to get discouraged, unmotivated, and give up. So I don't recommend doing that. Okay. Um, Again, it comes down to looking at your body, assessing your physique, having realistic expectations, listening to your body. Not, oh, my app said I burned 500 calories and now I got in my 10,000 steps. The only time I tell people to use apps, like the fitness apps, if they want to use their Apple Watches, if this stuff holds you accountable, great, do it. But enough of this. I got my 10,000 steps in today, and I like, who cares? Are you at where you want to be with your physique? No? Well, keep doing going. Okay. Are you at where you want to be with your cardiovascular endurance? No, we'll keep going. Okay. And then once you are at where you want to be, keep going. Don't take your foot off the gas. So I've never used fitness trackers. I don't own an Apple Watch. I'll never buy an Apple Watch. I'm not discouraging anyone out there to not buy an Apple Watch. I'm just saying that I've always just used the mirror. I've gone by how I look. I've gone by how I feel. I listen to my body. If my body says, hey, I need a day off from the gym, I take that day off from the gym. If my body's telling me, yeah, your chest is still sore, well, I'm not going to go train chest. I'm going to train back. I'm going to train shoulders. I'm going to train another muscle group. Okay. So I listen to my body. My body will tell me. And the longer that you do this, as in weight train, the better mind to muscle connection you will create. And you'll have a better relationship and better understanding with your body. And you say, okay, you know what? I know that right now I actually am just tired, but I know I can still go work out. So push through it. But if there's a point where, hey, I'm only on 2 hours of sleep, everything is sore, I don't feel good, maybe I have a sore throat, yeah, maybe it's a good idea to take the day off the gym. Okay. But you really have to be realistic with your goals and expectations and take a true assessment on your physique, listen to what your body's telling you, and that's how you should track your progress. But if having an Apple Watch helps, by all means, use it. And like I said, there's some people that love to use them for the accountability factor, and I say that's great. But if you're like me, mirror works. Last I checked, mirrors aren't broken. They'll tell you scale works. Okay. So, and again, how your clothes fit, how you feel, all that stuff will track progress. All right. Okay. Last question. Nick, do you think AI can really build a better training program than a human coach? I think that will depend on the human coach. There's a lot of human coaches out there that create copy and paste programs. Some probably even generate them from AI. Um, I've seen some programs over the years that to me look highly suspicious, as in it's a cookie cutter, one size fits all program. And I think a lot of people fall victim to this. So whenever I work with someone online, I have a questionnaire that I ask them. And yes, it's a generic questionnaire, but the questions that they answer will allow me to program accordingly for that individual. So I can create a more customized approach, whether I'm working with them on their training program or their nutritional plan or both. I also ask for photos if I'm working with someone online and they live in another country, they live in another town, they live in another province, if they're here in Canada, so I can assess their physique and see, okay, well, it looks like you're weak here. You've got great strength or great striations in your quadriceps, so your lower body's not an issue, but your upper body's an issue. So we're going to prioritize more upper body training. In your case, we're still going to train the lower body, but we're not going to give as much priority to that particular muscle group. Okay. If I'm working with someone who has to lose like maybe two, sometimes even 300 pounds, that does happen. I'm going to put that person on a very low volume training program to begin, especially if they're a beginner. Okay. And slowly start to increase the volume as we go. Same thing, I'll start them on a diet that's fairly high in calories, slowly start to reduce those calories as we continue to progress. Okay, so it really depends. It's a case by case scenario. You can't just say it's a one size fits all. And unfortunately, there are a lot of trainers out there that do give one size fits all programs. I've inherited clients that have worked with trainers like this because when I work with a new client who's worked with a trainer, I ask, can you show me what you've been doing with your trainer? A lot of times these clients can't even show me because the trainers aren't keeping track of anything they're doing. They're not keeping logs. They're not keeping anything, any data on their clients. And that is a trainer's job, okay, to be keeping that information. So if I have a client who has a health issue or has a physical limitation, I have that in their file. So I know and I can always refer back to it. Or if I have to have that client train with another one of our trainers, the trainer can look over the client's profile and go, oh, okay, so you have type 2 diabetes. Okay, we got to be careful if you're like feeling faint in the gym. We're going to have sure that we have maybe a candy bar, juice box on hand. We have them in the back room because we do have a few clients who are type 2 diabetic. So things like that are important to know. Okay. So it's always a good way to approach each person you work with and take that customized approach. Unfortunately, there's a lot of trainers that don't do that. And I feel that those trainers are going to lose clients to ChatGPT and other AI sources. Okay. And I do think there's people right now who don't understand AI in our industry and they're trying to fight it. And I always tell people, don't try to fight what's coming. Learn about it. Okay. Educate yourself on AI in any industry because it is here. Okay. So if you're that person that is just so ignorant, you're like, nope, I don't want to learn about it. I refuse. No, I'm better than AI. I'm like, you're gonna fall victim to AI and you're gonna get left back in the back. Okay. So people are gonna be moved forward. And yeah, so there are people you can go on ChatGPT and you can say, I want a 5 day training program, and you'll find that program. And you know what? There's a good chance it'll be a pretty good program. But the difference with I'm going to compare myself here to an AI. Um, the main difference is that AI is going to give you, let's say the AI and I give you the exact same training program to start. Where I'll make the difference though is based on how you're looking, how you're feeling, how you're sleeping. Are your weights going up in the gym? Are they going down in the gym? How are your energy levels? All this stuff I take into consideration when I make revisions to your training program and your nutritional plan. Now, an AI, yeah, an AI could probably do that too, but not to the same extent because you're going to fill that information to you. Well, now I'm feeling like this, and the AI is going to throw out some other stuff to you that is fairly generic. Okay, so sometimes working with someone who's experienced and has come across this before helps because they can troubleshoot more efficiently than an AI can. Okay. So it's not that I'm against people using AIs to design a training program for them. But personally, myself, I'm not really worried about losing business to AI because I do take a very customized approach, as I always have with every person I work with. And I've talked about this before. If I'm too busy to work with someone, I put it on my Instagram story. My roster is full. My online roster is full for this month, taking on new clients next month. Because I feel like if I take on too many people, I'm devaluing the service. Okay. So to answer that question, yes, I do think AI can design great training programs. And I do think AI can design training programs that are better than a lot of trainers out there. So that's why it's important to work with someone who will take a customized approach to your health, your fitness, and your well-being. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going up on Monday, September the 8th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly appreciate all the support and feedback that I receive from each and every single one of you. Thank you all once again, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.